Alright, Final Fantasy X. I've been looking for this. Wait a minute. I've already got Final Fantasy X. Say hello to the ground of a copy of Final Fantasy X. Oh, how did this happen? Well, you know what? Forget that. I'm gonna play the PlayStation 4 version. Yeah, PlayStation... No. I've already got it on the PlayStation 4. Help me, Darkadia. Hello everyone, I'm MVL and today I want to talk about Darkadia, which is what I personally use to catalogue my game collection, which should prevent me from buying the same game more than once, although inevitably that does seem to happen. Before I give you my thoughts about it, let's see how you use it, so without further ado, let's check that out. Okay, so let's take a look at using Darkadia. This is a fantastic tool for cataloging your game collection. As you can see, there's a lot going on this front page, but I will walk you through it. I'm going to start off on the right hand side here. We have total games. As you can see, I have around about 1,765 games, give or take a couple of games that are not on the database. I'll get to how you search for games on the database as we move along. And then at the bottom here we have unfinished and pile of shame as well. I've recently been adding games marked as complete in my collection as I've moved on, and I'll show you how to do that later. But unfinished and pile of shame I pretty much see as the same thing depending on how you categorize them. So there you have that. And then below that we have games total for different platforms, most here being PlayStation 2 at the moment with just under 300 games. And then you have your latest additions at the center here. And yeah, this is actually very useful because this tells you what games you added and when as you move along. So my most recent games added to my collection are at the top here, and I find this very useful because I do video game pickup videos and I categorize them from the time I pick them up. So this is very useful. If we click on this, you can see my most recent pickups. My most recent pickup here is actually the Resident Evil Revival selection, which is actually called a Biohazard Revival selection for the PlayStation 3, which is very cool. But there is actually a difference in the name of that game, and I'll get onto that as we search for games. And also because they use Giant Bomb for their game covers and information and things like that. Sometimes, as you can see on right hand side here, for Invasion, which is a ZX Spectrum game, the cover might be missing. But for the most part, almost every game I throw at this, they have on their system, and I'm able to add it to my collection. And it really does help prevent me buying multiples of the same copy of the game, most of the time. Anyway, let's take a look at the games section here. This moves us back onto the Games tab, so you have 3 tabs on your main page here. Your Profile tab, which you've just looked at, which is your landing page, if you will. And then you also have the Games tab, which you can use to manage your game collection, which I find very useful. And then finally you have the wish list tab. This is a very neat feature. I actually just use a notepad function on my phone, but I can certainly see you getting a lot of use out of this as well to catalog games that you want to go out and find for your game collection. Let's move back to the profile page and I'll show you how you use the games section to manage your game collection. So here I could click onto the PlayStation 2 and that'll take me to all of my PlayStation 2 games from my games tab. And as you look through the top here, you can see some more information about how you organize this. As you can see, since I clicked on PlayStation 2, it has shown me just the PlayStation 2 games, but you could of course type something different in here like Nintendo and look for your Nintendo Entertainment System games instead. And then you get all of those. They will be in alphabetical order by default and you can scroll through them. You can also filter by keywords. You could type in Final Fantasy and find all of your Final Fantasy games come up like that, which is very useful. As we've seen, the category option can let you find games from different systems, but it also allows you to find games you've played or have added to different categories as well, which is pretty useful. Finally, we have the sort by title or by rating, community rating, or release date if you want to see the games in order they were released for a certain system as well, which is pretty cool. And then you can organize how they are displayed here. I have them on this kind of virtual shelf, but you can also put them as titles. And then if you've got a lot of games on the screen, you want to navigate them, you can make the titles even smaller so you can navigate more games at once. But I quite like this virtual shelf where there are 2 options, one for a kind of beech wood effect and one for this kind of darker wood there. But I quite like the more regular shelf look, so we'll go with that. Now you can browse games at the top here, or you can also use the search function, which I will. So let's look for something real quick, and I think Project Zero is a good one to go for because most of these games appear by their American names. So if you want to find something like Project Zero, you'll have to type in Fatal Frame to find that, and that's what it will show up as, even though over here in the UK the games were known as Project Zero, of course. And then you have a number of options on the games themselves. As you can see in the information here it gives you, it tells you that it was on the PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, and also the PlayStation Network on the PlayStation 3, which is really cool. You get an image of the game, which again is almost always the American cover art, and then you get some information about the game as well. This is where you can add the game to your collection. In this area here, you would click on this, and it says there in your library, but it will say add to your library if it's not, and you just click on that and you can immediately add that to your library. You could also click on the add to wish list if that was a game you wanted to grab later down the line, and examine your wish list to find out what games you're after. And finally we have the launch dialog option, which is the most useful feature here for cataloging your games. So let's open that up right now and have a look at that. So here we have a lot of information. It may be a bit overwhelming, but most of this you might not need to worry about. In the metadata here you can add things like, are you currently playing the game? Do you love the game? Owned will show up automatically if you have added that game to your collection, and then it's marked as played here, but that is also because I have marked it as completed. I've started marking games as completed just to help me remember which games I have played and which games I do need to play as well. You can also mark games as mastered. This is if you've played a storyline and or side quests are completed. I pretty much see that as the same thing as completed. And then likewise there's dominated if you've done the main storyline and gone after all the achievements and things like that. I'm not too bothered about achievements, so I'm not bothered about marking that or not. And then finally we have the option for shelved here, where if the game can't be beaten or you're pretty much never going to come back to it, you know that you can mark it as that on your dialogue there as well. And it won't be added to your pile of shame that way. Here we have the date the game was added to your collection, at least on Darkadia, which is very handy for knowing when you put that in your collection. You can also rate the game. So here you could add, let's say 5 stars if you thought the game was amazing, or 1 star if you thought it was not so good, and that way you know when you're looking at the game if you want to return to that game down the line or not. Now I've marked this on the platform of original Xbox, which means it'll show up in my Xbox collection and on my Xbox numbers. I could also click on this and add it to my PlayStation 2 as well if I wanted to. I only have the original Xbox copy, but that's how you do that. I think that's probably the most important feature you need to worry about, making sure the games are in the correct platforms so you know which copy you have. Alright, and you can also add some custom tags here as well. And you can also add your current playtime, the date you completed the game, how long it took you to complete, and things like that. I'm not too worried about that, just if it's completed is enough for me. And then there is some information here about your copies. Here you can add a load of information about what kind of version this is. Is it a digital or is it a physical version? And the condition of it and some general notes about it as well, if it is complete in the box, and if it has the manual or not as well, which is very handy. I actually tend to use the notes section for that myself. So in the notes I might say something like missing box, and then I will save that, and I will know that the game is missing a box when I go to check the notes. That's how I tend to organize things like that. You can also add a review to it as well to let other people know in the Darkadia community what you think about the game, and there's an overview section as well for some extra information, and that's how you use Darkadia. So as you can see, it is a very useful tool for any game collector, and the best thing about it is completely free. You can of course have a paid version where you support the people that put it together, and I very much recommend doing that, but you don't need that to use it. What you will get is, if you have the paid version, you can add multiple copies of the same game to your collection for your virtual shelf, if you will, and that'll help you distinguish different versions of the same game, be it a game that is on one system like the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox as well. But you don't actually need to do this, because you can put in the dialogue of the game that it is on multiple systems, and you can also use the notes as well to add different things, like if it is a boxed version of a game, unboxed, loose cartridge, loose disc, or what have you, so you can do that as well. the dialogue does lead me on to another point I want to make, which is when you're using the phone version of it. So I use my phone when I'm out game hunting. Apparently this is a phone, not this. If you do this, this confuses people. This is a phone these days. But I'm out on my phone because I have the internet on it, and I can check the database of Darkadia to see if it shows up in my collection, which is really handy. What I can't do, however, is launch the dialogue to see if I have the game on which system. So I might have it on multiple systems, I might want it on a different system. Let's say the original Xbox version has better graphics, and I've been after that one, and I only have it on the PlayStation 2. So I can't launch the dialogue to see which it is, but there's a workaround for this which I've been using, where I go into my own collection and I search for, let's say, my Xbox games. The only downside of this is when I'm searching through my Xbox games, I do have to scroll all the way down the alphabet. Let's say it's at the bottom of the alphabet. That's a fair bit of scrolling for doing this thing that you do to scroll. But you can check it that way. You can't, however, look in the notes to see if it is a box or unboxed game. You kind of have to rely on your memory for that, so I would like to be able to open the dialogue on my mobile device. That would be something I'd like to see improved upon. Another thing I'd like to see improved upon is the database. They currently use, I believe, Giant Bomb for their game database, which is a very good database, but it is an American database, so it doesn't have a lot of stuff for myself, being a UK gamer, that you might want on there. For example, something like the Snow Queen's Quest for the PlayStation 2, which I only picked up because it has the voice of Richard O'Brien in. Also, a lot of vintage UK computer games might not be on there, so you might not see many BBC Micro games on there, which is a shame, but they are updating the database all the time, which is great. So there you go, those are my thoughts on Darkadia. It's what I use to hopefully prevent myself from buying the same game more than once and catalogue my crazy game collection. It certainly helps, especially if you're a maniac and you don't alphabetize and categorize your games very well. You might actually find it easier to search for Darkadia than actually searching for your shelves. I'm, a sane person, so everything's alphabetized, but, each to their own. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you like the look of Darkadia. If you use something else, let me know. I will be interested to know. Certainly I would like to catalogue my DVDs and my CDs in future as well, so I don't end up buying the same thing more than once again. I'm crazy, as you know. If you like the video, be sure to leave a like or a comment to let me know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. And if you'd like to, you can also support me through Patreon or YouTube channel membership. Thank you for watching. I've been MVL, and I will catch you next time.